In our last two scenarios, we are considering situations where we have a video matrix allowing sharing of a bank of sources to multiple viewing locations. In this scenario, the zone of the video matrix is fed to an input of the surround sound receiver. Since it's not likely that we would place the game console back at the central location, we're representing it as connected to a TV input separate from that fed by the surround sound receiver. While acknowledging that the receiver might be a better place to input the game console, doing so would add a level of complexity beyond the scope of this training video. The success of this example depends on our ability to eliminate switching at the receiver, since we will need to support switching at the distributed video matrix instead. We'll now move to the family room in the project, where we select the TV and then its input configuration tab. The HDMI input is connected to the main zone of the surround sound receiver. However, if we select that, we will be presented with the multiple inputs of the receiver, which we are not going to be switching. So instead, we will select the Zone 1 output of the distributed video matrix. Now we are presented with the source inputs to that matrix instead, which is what we want. Checking the source inputs of the matrix, we see that we have already assigned these to the shared sources in the rack, so there's no more work to do here other than to make sure that the Blu-ray player gets powered on when selected, as we've done before. We note that on the IRX2 we have a quad sensor to track the shared Blu-ray player's power for this purpose. While in this view, let's check to make sure the IR channels for the devices in the rack location are assigned. Now, returning to the matrix, we do need to select the associated zone, which is Zone 1 in this case. Be sure to select the zone itself and not the current source for that zone. And we will associate as an audio device the surround sound receiver in the family room. Now, by doing this, we enable volume control and power synchronization of the receiver. When we use the widget to power the zone on, both the TV and the receiver will power on, and when we power the zone off, both devices will power off. Notice that there is also a field labeled video device, which is pretty much a relic now that Equinox is our interface. In Equinox, we start with the video device and work down, so this association here is irrelevant. Now we need to assign a TCP/IP port to control the video matrix. We click the arrow on the port field. We create a new port on controller 1. Once created, to modify, we'll click the right arrow. Notice that the driver has been assigned to various fields. All that is left for us to do is to enter the IP address. But let's modify the port name for clarification. Now, as we return to the family room TV object and back to its input configuration, we will add the widget action that turns on the Blu-ray player when that is selected. We also need to add the game console to HDMI input 2. We select the speaker checkbox for this input only, representing that it will use the TV speakers for audio instead of the receiver. If we were to do the same for the distributed video zone, we would be overriding the audio device we just entered in the previous view, which of course we don't want to do. Now, we have no IR devices locally, but we do need to control the TV and the receiver, so let's assign ports to these. The TV will assign to port number 1 on the IRX2. Make sure that we're selecting the correct IRX2, the one in the family room. And then the DTR we will assign to port 2. Now, after we have done this, all we need to do is to configure the IRX2s and upload the file to the controller, and then we will have completed the implementation of the video widget for this viewing zone.